Hello and welcome to another episode of the O3C podcast. My name is Jonathan Dunn and I am joined by the supremely excellent Chris Dow.
Not Sam Ryder.
And this is the penultimate Playdate with O3C. It's week 5 and another absolutely excellent week in season 2 for the Playdate. What an incredible season we're having. We have Tiny Turnip, a puzzling platforming Metroidvania where you swing, roll, swim and leap around, exploring a world as the titular small root vegetable with retractable arms. Yeah. And we also have the short and very sweet comedic point-and-click adventure Chance's Lucky Escape, following a very fortunate anthropomorphic dog's criminal antics. We're also going to be talking... We're going to be talking about both of those games in a bit, and also covering a new game that's dropped on the catalogue, Top BINZ.
Top BINZ.
But before we do that, it's rewind time again as we track back to our chat with Panic's own head of video and podcasts, Christa Mrgan. She's the host of the Playdate podcast. You'll have heard her voice on pretty much any trailer, any video that Panic have done. She graciously gave her time to talk with us a few days ago about all things Playdate, podcasting, and potentially more. Please do enjoy. If you're watching this, then you have a treat in store because we actually have the full unedited interview with Christa available as a separate video on our channel. So click the link here, here,
It's one of them.
Here, one of them. Enjoy a lovely chit and a likely chat about Playdate, other games, and obscure European filmmaking manifestos that only I found interesting. That was Christa Mrgan. Thank you so much again to her for sparing her time to waggle chins with us. We're big fans of her, and that was very, very much appreciated. Audio-only listeners, that was quite a heavily edited version of the interview because we went on many tangents. We talked about some really, really cool stuff, really interesting stuff that I cut out in the interest of time, but it's brilliant. So we've put the entire interview up on our YouTube channel. So head over to YouTube, find us, and you can see the full interview there. And it's really, really good, really good. Do that, and subscribe to the channel. That's something, isn't it?
That is. Like and subscribe.
That's the one.
Smash that like and ring that bell and whatever else the cool kids on YouTube say.
No, don't do that. Don't do that. I
mean, don't subscribe. Don't like. Yeah. Or if you do it, but do it quietly.
Yeah. Do it and don't shout about it.
Don't make a song and dance about it. We're not that interested.
No, exactly. Tell people though.
Yeah.
God, yeah. Tell people
in person by letter.
In person, yeah. Or just retweet all of our stuff. Not on Twitter. So, as teased at the top of the... Twitter's not a thing. As teased at the top of the episode, before we talk about tiny turnips and lucky dogs, we have something else to cover. Playdate developer Damien Dommett of Damos Games kindly gifted us some download codes for his new game that's just dropped on the Playdate catalogue. Chris, tell us about Top BINZ.
Top BINZ.
Every time.
Yeah. As much as this mini season of Playdate episodes has been a lot of work for us, it's also been quite vindicating because we have seen like a little, uptick in listeners. We've had a bit more social media engagement, but most importantly, I think we've had a kind of subtle nod of recognition from the wider Playdate community that we have been doing this a while now. We've put the hard yards in and we've covered the Playdate basically since we had the units, pretty consistently. And when Damien Dommett, like you said, got in touch and said, "Do you want to check out my new game? It's just come out in the catalogue." I was like, yeah, definitely. Especially when I saw that it was called Top BINZ, which for international listeners, it's a very British reference to a footballer scoring a top corner screamer. And the game is literally about being...
stamp.
Exactly. And the game is literally about being a bin man or refuse collector for the formal term. So I couldn't really say no. So we are covering this extra little slice of Playdate before we cover the main seasonal pairing for this week. Top BINZ. It's a time management game. It's got a soft narrative. Think, I don't know, something like Diner Dash, or if you're using the Playdate as your only reference point, you could look at Season 1's Flipper Lifter, is a similar kind of game. There are jobs to do. If you take too long to do them, someone will get upset and you'll probably fail the level. In Top BINZ, a basic stage progresses as follows. So you're hiking up and down a small piece of street. You're waiting for homeowners to put their dustbins out for collection. When said bins do appear, You need to grab them, then crank to lift them above your head to carry them over to your bin lorry. You attach the bin to the lorry, you enter the cabin, and then you crank to empty the bin into the maw of the garbage compactor. And you repeat this until your truck is full, and then you drive to a little dump that's situated just off to one side of the stage, and then you crank in reverse to empty your stinky haul for cold, hard cash. And as the game progresses, there are additional actions that are added to kind of make things a little bit tougher. So you've got spillage on the road you might need to sweep up. You eventually have wildlife or teenagers you need to shoo away. But the core loop is always about managing the bins and managing your load to maximize your profits. The challenge of this game, though, comes from ensuring that bins are not left out too long, because otherwise the very entitled, shall I say, residents will call the council and complain, earning you a black mark. And too many complaints, and it's game over. All of this setup is fine, but the execution is just a little bit wonky, which means that, you know, a reasonably simple process ultimately feels a bit stickier than it should. So I'm going to try and tackle the things that I found just not quite there. Firstly, this is the biggest complaint. The way the sort of stage layouts work and the bins are generated, it's attempting to appear random, but that means it's not uncommon for you to grab a bin from, say, the third house of a block, trundle back to your lorry to load up, and then find that you've had a resident complain because a bin has spawned at that same house, basically the second you walked off screen. And that didn't really feel fair. And it meant that when I was first getting the hang of the game as well, I failed the first stage multiple times before I made any progress because luck just wasn't on my side. They were appearing in places I didn't know to look for. There isn't kind of an obvious thing to say, it's over there if you want to go and grab it. So that took a bit of time to get used to. You do learn to mitigate that sort of issue. The easiest way is just take your lorry everywhere because it's a little bit faster than walking.
Yeah. But
it's still a problem, I think, with the game's logic is not quite balanced enough, I think, to make it kind of a fair experience. Additionally, there's not, like I said, a consistent marker that shows where bins are spawning. So in many cases, the first you're even aware that a bin is there to collect is the sound of an angry resident, and then you've not got long to sort it out at that point. The solution here for me would be some sort of rudimentary map like the old arcade game Defender has. It basically, at the top of the screen, there's a mini view of the entire widescreen play space. And in that game, you've got aliens trying to capture your little people from the ground and take them off into, you know, space or whatever. But it pops up on the mini map basically to say, oh, there's something there. Here it is relative to you, so you know where you're flying. And it's a really simple thing. It's not like a graphically intense effect or anything like that. And I think there's a way of doing that in top bins that would work quite nicely. You know, it could mark your position, the truck's position, the position of any bins, and then just play a little ding when the first bin spawns. And then you'll look up and go, oh, off to my right. There we go. And, you know, sorted potentially. Second issue for me, movement and control. The Playdate is a simple machine. You know, we've talked to a few developers recently about how do you make use of quite limited button layout. You've got to be thoughtful when choosing which buttons to assign to tasks in an action game like this as well.
Yeah.
And for top bins, it's using contextual controls. So D-pad down is going to pick up a bin ready for cranking if you're on foot. It is also going to allow you to place a bin back down if it's already been hoisted. It's also going to let you get out of the lorry when you're on board. And other controls are similarly multi-use. And I think the fact that by pressing B, you've got a permanent button hint guide at the base of the screen suggests to me at least that a few people probably struggle to retain this suite of controls in memory, at least getting started. And likely also found a few of the actions like loading the lorry with a full bin just a bit too pixel precise as well, because with the hint not there, sometimes I'm pressing up to try and load it. And it's like, you can, but you need to just walk a few pixels more to the right before I'll let you. And again, it's just small niggles that kind of over time do add up to make you go, well, I could have done better if that wasn't happening. Finally, and this is really the softest of moans, I wanted to touch on the look and sound of top bins.
Top bins.
I never want to be too harsh on developers making games likely, you know, very small teams or single developers from bedrooms in their spare time. But there were just a few bits that didn't quite gel here. And I think they could easily be tweaked. Again, it's stuff that I don't think is a big thing to look at. First whinge. If you're walking to the right, for example, when you grab a bin and then you go to walk left to head back to your lorry, the whole screen position of your character changes. And it felt really jarring every single time. And I don't know how games work. I'm just a simple man. But in terms of animation, it feels to me like the kind of central anchor point of the character is just slightly off when the sprite has been flipped over. And it needs to kind of just be brought back a few pixels so that when you flip, it doesn't do the big camera readjustment as well. Softer moan. There's bits of the score, like the soundtrack that feel like they haven't quite been quantized properly. And to my ear, at least, it feels like this could be accidental rather than by design, because Harold's Walk a few weeks ago, when I talked about that, was pure weirdo music, but felt like I'm doing this on purpose. Whereas Top Bins is like, I can hear what the melody should be and where the bass line should be going. And sometimes it's just a little bit out, like somebody's running at a slightly slower time than the rest of the instruments. Finally, and this is a very much me problem, I don't think this is actually an issue in the game, the cutscene art doesn't meld with your character design in stage, because you've got like a quite realistic kind of rendering of your boss that shouts at you between stages. And then when you get in game, you're refuse collector, you're like a bandy-legged Playmobil man. and it just felt a little bit incongruent. So that's no one's going to care about something like that, really. It's a stylistic thing more than anything else. But the others, I think, are little niggles that could be looked at. And I think there is a good game underneath some of these issues. I will also say it can't be easy launching alongside season experiences at the moment.
Yeah.
All these games that we've been talking about week on week, they have the benefit of panic funding playtesting. They're farming playtesting out to get, a slightly bigger pool. People will give feedback, Panic themselves can say, oh, to fix that problem, performance, whatever it might be, we wrote the SDK, so we can help you there as well. Like they've got that one-to-one kind of, they're on the phone the other end. But I think the core of Top Bins is really solid. And it's interestingly British enough that I really hope Damien considers like a few little tweaks to refine some of the jagged edges here. Because I liked the game, I just didn't love it for these other sort of mini problems. How did you get on with the game?
Yeah, I mean, very, very similar sort of thoughts to you. I sort of felt that there were too many actions involved with the process of loading the bins. Yeah. It's sort of nullified when you beat the game and you unlock a super truck. That means you don't have to get into the truck and crank to empty the rubbish.
Oh, wow, yeah.
That helps make the game significantly more fun. And then literally it's almost like night and day between like being like, this is not annoying, but it's just like this... I don't know. Yeah, there's too much to think about.
A level of friction,
versus like, this is really fun. I feel like I'm on top of this,
Yeah.
Because, I mean, there is a lot going on between fending off foxes, birds, teenagers, cleaning rubbish, not breaking your knees. That's the thing. I often... that sort of pixel precise loading of the bins has caught me out a few times. There was even a few times where I'd like... either press the wrong button or I put the bin down and I thought it was loaded, and I get into the truck and I crank
for no reason,
and it does nothing. So something to sort of indicate when the bins are loaded, even if it's just like
it's slightly higher
on the the truck, or and I'd written down as well like some sort of alert to tell you when bins are being put out, not just when it's too late. Like there's another aspect of the game that you didn't mention, which is the mini games that are at the end of each stage.
Of course, the bonus stages, and
they're all different. There's like 7 different mini games, or I don't know, maybe 5 different mini games, and they're a little hit and miss. They all feel a little bit like first draft ideas for mini games. There's a lot going on in this game, and it feels like it could have done with like a mechanical editorial trim.
Yeah, it's that feature creep thing, isn't it? Like when we talked to Jan last week.
Yeah,
he said, with Be Kind to Yourself, it's like, okay, I've done the maximalist thing. Now I'm going to find a concept and just refine that concept.
Yeah.
And I know what you mean. Like in Top Bins, it's like you can unlock 50 outfits and there's a speedrun mode and there's something else and there's something else. There's a huge amount.
Like that side of things is really, really is cool. And like I said, once you get the super truck, then the game's a lot more fun. But yeah, it feels like it needs a bit of an editor to come in. I mean, that's me talking as an editor. What you really need is me. But,
offering your services that.
I mean, I can't edit
I'll do it for games.
Yeah, why not? Do it, made it up on everything else. But all in all, like I had an okay time with it. There's a sort of frantic overcookedness to its action that's sort of, got that balance between fun and stressful, as with Overcooked. It goes sort of hand in hand with these types of games. So it's not something like you could ever like settle in for a long session with. But yeah, it's good. It's good, but I think it could be better.
Yes. Yeah.
Should we talk about season 2?
Might as well.
Ladies and gentlemen, I've got a new favourite Playdate season 2 game.
Oh.
Tiny Turnip.
I could have guessed. I could have assumed.
Probably could have done. Yeah, what an absolute treat. This is a puzzling action platformer that is a full-blown veritable Metroidvania. You play as an adorable little vegetable with retractable arms that you use to move yourself around this world as you unlock more abilities, collect hidden stars and other things, and it's just wonderful. We mentioned DK King of Swing a few weeks back because the developer of Long Puppy had made a similar game to that. And now we have something very much in that vein, because this is the first way that you move your turnip around. There are sections of the background, on the wall that you can hold on to, and you press B to grab on with one of your hands, and then you use the crank to move your arms to climb and crawl your way around the world. It's very intuitive. It didn't take me long to sort of move around quite quickly and easily. And then you learn that you can tuck your arms inside to roll around au naturel in your root form. Dreadful. You assume the sort of invisible shape of a circle for when you're rolling as your turnip, so your stalk isn't bouncing around, so it's very clean and easy, and that's how you roll along the floor and through gaps and down holes and stuff. And then you're basically just left to explore this world. There's a nice clear map that you have to look around and see where you haven't been. There aren't any map markers to tell you like where to go next, which is great to encourage that sense of like free exploration, which is so magnetic in Metroidvanias. You'll encounter roadblocks and assume that you'll find an ability, somewhere else to then help you overcome that. But the abilities you unlock, I'm not going to spoil them here. They've just been so fun and slightly surprising. Like, there were several sections where I was like, well, I can't reach that. So I assume at some point I'm going to find a way to either maybe jump or flip or something. I don't know. The way the game does that, brilliantly considered. And then it's got the genius thing of you then reconsidering a lot of areas and other sort of bits you've encountered before in a new light. And then you just want to go and explore everything you've already explored all over again. And that's just the such a core Metroidvania thrill.
Yeah.
It's so clever. It's so well designed. I almost can't bear it. And like when you think you've got the game sussed out and you've got the hang of moving around and going quite quickly and sort of going between bits and tucking up and rolling around and all this sort of stuff, they'll just throw in an impressive new world mechanic like waterfalls, which mean you can't retain a solid grip on walls, so you need to move quickly. Or wind that you need to swing and release at the right moment to let the breeze carry you to the next bit of wall to grab onto, or low gravity, or underwater stuff. It's mad how much stuff is in this game. It's clearly doing so much work behind the surface.
Yeah.
And like the game runs pretty much rock solid and smooth.
It's very
certainly,
smooth.
Certainly the things that you think may cause some slowdown don't have any issue at all. Like the only frame drops I noticed were just quite early on when there was just some big circles rotating to hold on to, and there was a bit of slowdown. And I thought maybe these guys need to chat to Gregory Kogos on how to optimize circles on the Playdate. But that just shows my my ignorance of how these games work. Like Squid God said in one of his amazing development documentation videos for Playdate, ladders are the real challenge of games development. And and there I was thinking it was manipulating gravity.
Yeah.
It's worth mentioning, no ladders to be seen in Tiny Turnip, so that holds up.
Heeded the advice.
Absolutely. Like, the level of challenge in Tiny Turnip, I find for me, is just perfect. Like, there are some very tricky platforming sections that required me to have several stabs at before I got through them. But the checkpointing is, I wouldn't even say generous. It's just like, it's just spot on. And there's deliberately spaced out flags around the world that work as your checkpoints. You also have the option to always walk back to the last flag you checked in at, and they've always got a flag before and immediately after a hard section, so like you're not ever just trying to get through something without any hope. Like the game's got you covered, and give you a little cuddle and a pat on the back when you best something difficult.
It's well deserved. Yeah,
it is. Yeah. Like, the art in this game is very, very cool. It's simple, but always very clear to see what's what. The walls you can hang on to have got nice texturing. And then when you go to a different biome in this world, then the texturing and the pattern on the wall changes. as a way of sort of indicating that you're in a different biome, and it's very subtle, but it gives that a really nice sense of variety. Like the world mechanics, like I said, like the wind and gravity, they're nicely denoted by the movement of particles in the background.
Yeah.
The turnip itself is somehow cute, and the hands and arms have somehow got a lovely bit of character to them.
They do.
Also, the music is fantastic.
Yes.
It's a mix of something between Sonic 3 and Donkey Kong Country. They've got really great themes for each of the different distinct zones in this world. I am blown away by this game. As I said at the start, this is definitely my favourite game of Season 2 so far. I haven't finished it yet, so time will tell if it sticks the landing. You know, how will I feel at the end? Will I have the urge to go and mop up all the collectibles? But one thing's for sure, Tiny Turnip is the only thing I want to play on my Playdate for now. How did you get on with it?
I really liked it too.
Hard disagree.
No, I really loved it. I mean, mentioning the soundtrack first, I felt it's really drawing from the music of Spelunky and UFO 50, and that's designed by a guy called, I don't know how to pronounce his name, because I think he's Norwegian. It's like Eirik Serki. You might have to sort of have a little check and see if I'm anywhere close with your
Andy
Serkis,
Danish. It's pronounced.
yeah. He took some time out from Gollum, and he's been doing this lovely chiptune stuff instead.
Lovely, precious chiptune.
Especially kind of the early sort of the intro theme, and then kind of the first world. Really sounds to me like some stuff from early Spelunky. I've listened to that soundtrack a tremendous amount. So it was. I looked up the composer first just to make sure it wasn't. I was going to say, I spotted it, but no, it wasn't. It's another person doing it. But the game itself, I really liked that. This is essentially a companion game to an upcoming game. The developers making a game called Turnip Mountain, and this is like the baby version, and that it feels this good to control. And just works perfectly. It's a great modern example of how games used to release across formats. Because if you think back to like, there used to be the big game on N64 or PlayStation, whatever, and then you'd usually had a similar but slightly different handheld version for like the Game Boy Color or later the Game Boy Advance. And they were connected, but they were their own thing. And although Tiny Turnip and Turnip Mountain look to be mechanically very similar, I think it'll be interesting to see the design sensibilities kind of migrate from the Playdate's itty-bitty screen and using the crank to move and all these sorts of things to then be, you know, a full 16:9 dual analog stick, presumably moving both arms, maybe independently. It warms the cockles. You know, I just really like seeing it, that sort of, that way of designing and developing. I don't know kind of which came first in concept for the
turnip
developer.
or the egg.
Yeah, the turnip or the arms. but yeah, it's really great, and it's a really good game. It's very slick, it's very polished. I felt like you mentioned DK King of the Swing. It's very GBA coded. There's something about it that felt Game Boy Advance coded. So Long Puppy obviously had its chase sections that felt very Wario Land 4, but there's something about the look and feel of this that reminds me of a whole range of other Game Boy Advance games, like, you know, the movement of DK. It kind of made me feel about Karuin as well.
Yeah,
something about the stage design, the way it looks in these kind of flat panels that you're climbing up. It's got like a bit of drill dozer in its playfulness, I think. It's obviously, you know, it's a Metroidvania, so it's definitely got some Metroid Zero Mission or whichever other Metroid games are on the platform. But
Fusion.
even like rolling as the turnip feels like the morph ball. It's like got all these kind of elements. But it does have also, you know, those modern inspirations too. Like the soundtrack design feels quite new in its way, even though it's like a throwback to a style of the past. It still feels contemporary. And the way it's kind of like, it's a Metroidvania, but it's just slightly truncated to fit this platform. It reminds me of something like VVV as well. Yeah. That obviously in that game, you're not getting abilities, but you are kind of like gated from certain sections, and the aesthetic it all just made me think of these things together. I've not finished this one yet. I'm further behind you, but I'm very keen to sit down and pick through it properly, because it could well be, I don't even think that's fair, actually. I was going to say maybe it's the most polished experience the season so far, but they've all been just absolute rippers.
They really have.
I genuinely can't believe the level of quality. We said this last time, that it's just week on week. I don't think there's any other consoles out there that have this hit rate.
No.
In terms of like what the Playdate is trying to do and what it's delivering on in these completely unique experiences that you cannot play elsewhere. It's just, I don't know, there isn't a competitor in that same space.
No.
There's nothing else doing that, and there's certainly nothing else doing that this well. So yeah.
And if you, I mean, and like, not being funny, but if you look at just Panic's history of
unreal.
games they've released, you know, or published, you know,
amazing.
Absolutely
amazing.
Annapurna, maybe a comparable point to say that their hit rate is extraordinary. But yeah,
I still feel though Annapurna though will often have a release that someone like we might really love, but it can still be quite divisive elsewhere. And I haven't seen that for I think any of Panic's kind of like big productions.
No.
So if you think back to like Firewatch was pretty universally loved. Goose Game obviously was everywhere. You know, it became like a social media viral smash as well as everything else. Thank goodness You're Here as well had a similar kind of effect. So I think they just really have an eye for this stuff.
Yeah.
So you know, small team, but they must talk to each other a lot and just get it right. They just
cannot
get
wait
it right.
for these next 2 games as well that they've got coming out that Christa spoke about. Man,
it's going to be good. It's going to be good. Do you want to hear about Chance's Lucky Escape as well?
Yeah.
Chance's Lucky Escape is a point-and-click adventure game, which would make it seem like this season has ended up being a bit point-and-click heavy. But the more I thought about it, I'd posit, now being 5 weeks in, that if Chance is a very traditional 90s-style point-and-click game in the vein of like LucasArts, Monkey Island, that kind of thing, that would actually make the Whiteout retroactively closer to a modern walking sim because it's primarily a narrative game with very soft puzzles. And it makes Shadowgate PD a sort of puzzle box adventure game, because it's a predilection more with mechanical problem solving and trial and error lock picking. You know, it's not storytelling so much. It's got some atmosphere, but it really is about how do I just brute force my way through puzzles. It's a different experience. So they are all very different, despite essentially be drawing from the same pool. Chance, though, it's the shortest and easiest of these 3 games, which suits me a lot of the time. You know, it's got 6 small chapters, each run between 5 and 10 minutes in length. It's very easy to pick up and play just a chapter if you want, or just have a comfortable hour in bed on a Saturday morning, like I did when I played through the whole thing. You take control of a small-time criminal called Chance in a world of anthropomorphic animal characters. Chance is a dog. Good boy. At the start of the game, Chance is late to meet his boss due to a flat tire, and in trying to solve his tricky predicament, you're introduced to the double-edged sword that is Chance's relationship with luck. The game's kind of listing on the Panic website says the luckiest dog in the world, and that is because although Chance often finds himself the victim of misfortune, this usually in turn leads to his fortunes actually turning around for the good. As an example from Chapter 1, so as not to ruin the story, because like I said, it's not a huge game, Chance falls down a manhole cover when trying to unlock the sticky trunk of his car, but in turn then avoids early capture by the police, who arrive moments after he tumbles into the sewer. And it's that kind of reasonably slapstick approach to each scene, where something happens and you go, "Oh, silly Billy," and then the next scene is like, "But actually, that saved me quite a lot of grief." Puzzle solving is all quite straightforward. It's got very basic inventory management along the bottom part of the screen. You've got a cursor you're moving around, just essentially trying to interact with bits of the scene. You know, that's the flavour of the day. You rarely get stuck, as you're only ever juggling 1 or 2 items with 1 or 2 elements of sort of scene furniture. Though I will mention that a few puzzles ask you to blow into the Playdate's microphone or twirl the crank, which felt a bit launch window Nintendo DS in execution, which I didn't love those bits. Like, this is fine.
It does. It gives you a heads up at the start.
It does.
Yeah.
And also, I didn't realise when the microphone is on the Playdate, the light comes on the top. So
does it?
You know it's listening. Yeah.
Oh, that's
lights up
interesting.
red.
Yeah.
So if you don't know when to blow, it's literally telling you. It's like, I'm not listening until that light is on, if you look closely. But yeah, I really like the game. I really like the pixel art and world design. I like the noir style, kind of smoky back alley jazz score.
Yeah.
One thing that doesn't like that is the Playdate speaker at full volume. Like, a couple of those kind of brass instruments seriously clip that little mono speaker. So it's another game. Either play just a little bit quieter or whack your headphones in if you want the full experience. But to be honest, my only real criticism outside of being asked to blow my hot breath all over the device is just the length. Because although I do love short games generally, the overall runtime here, coupled with all these stages being very short, the chapters are very, very wee, it feels like it could be the prologue to a bigger, like, 3-4 hour game, as opposed to just this little chunk. And there's no replay here unless you want to just quickly blast through the story again in even less time. So it kind of ends up being the first game this season where I just can't see myself ever needing to return, because it's not as long as the other point and click adjacent games that I just mentioned. It's not as replayable as some of the other more score or speed driven titles. So it's kind of just a nice one and doneer. You know, the puzzles are not hard enough. I'm going to go away from a year and be like, oh, I can't quite remember what to do there. Like, it's going to be in my brain. So
Oh, in the microphone.
Exactly. So to replay it, I'd be done in 15 minutes. So I kind of have to look at it and say, okay, it's like reading a little comic that you look at the art and go, oh yeah, there's the narrative. That was nice to look at, 'cause it is really nicely drawn. And then you're just filing it away on your digital shelf when you're done. So for you, obviously it's a short game, but did you also have a chance to finish this one in between your 12-hour daily grind on Elden Ring Night Rain at the moment?
Well, I'm going to start with a tangent.
Yeah.
I don't know if we've mentioned this on the podcast before about how for a while we exchanged photos with each other of us only playing our playdates in hospital.
Yeah, there was a little window of that.
Yeah, and it covered, I think, 2 hospital trips each during that time. And there's something very comforting about having the playdate with you in those times. And I think it's about how it helps convert the light source in those places. Like in hospitals, you have this horrible, cold, depressing, bleak light that drain your life essence the longer you're in there.
Yeah, I agree.
And suddenly, with a playdate in hand, they're actually very helpful in letting you play on its lovely reflective screen.
Yeah.
I'll say now, I didn't end up in hospital, but on Friday I had a very minor car accident. Which
I was not aware.
No, I know.
I'm glad you're okay.
I'm absolutely fine, but it did result in me having 2 flat tires and a very, very long wait. Fortunately, I'd packed my playdate with me because I foresaw a bit of downtime between the 2 work things that I was on my way to.
Yeah.
And I was absolutely thrilled to be able to distract myself from my flat tires by having a game to play. And I absolutely laughed my dick off when the game started with a flat tire. I couldn't believe it. And the other unfortunate thing is the fact that it barely passed any of the time that needed passing, because I was done in 30 minutes and I still had 2 hours sat, left waiting. But I enjoyed it. It reminded me, of those like old point and click games. Simon the Sorcerer was like my particular sort of bag from that era of games. I liked the tone, the writing, it was lovely. I'm never angry if a game is shorter than I expect.
No.
But and when I saw there were 6 chapters and I saw the rate I was going through them, I thought, oh, maybe I didn't scroll to the second screen and there's 12 chapters. No, there's not. There's not. Which is fine, because, like you said, it's a nice experience. I'd rather have a nice experience that was done than have something that demanded hours of my time didn't really sort of deliver on any sort of experience. It knows what it wants to do. It does it, and it goes home. And happy days. Nice game. But like you said, I'm not going to play it again. But it's a nice dog.
I think for me, it's the difference. Like you said, a shorter game is always better, in that a shorter game that I finish and go, could have been a bit longer, rather than me just dropping a game halfway through. Yeah. Which is really common. And a game doesn't have to be massively long for me to do that. I can look up, how long to beat, and it's like, it's 5 hours. And sometimes I'm bored by 2.5. And at that stage, it's like, well, I kind of know what the game's doing. I don't think it's going to do much more for me at this point. So I guess I just shelve it. And I would much prefer to have an experience where it's like, it's all done. I've got the whole package. I've experienced exactly what the developer wanted me to see. And now I can play something else.
Yeah.
And another winner.
Absolutely. Well, there we go. That was week 5. One more week to go, Chris. One more week to go. Are they going to go out with 2 more bangers?
They have to. They have to.
They have to. They have to.
You can't build it up like this and then not.
I know. Oh, I'm looking forward to playing the next 2 games. And next episode, we're also going to do our final season 2 rankings.
Yeah, boy.
So we're going to rank all 12 games in some sort of order. The order of which ones we liked best to worst, specifically. Are there going to be more guests, more interviews? Probably. Yes.
I reckon.
Yes, there will be. In the meantime, do reach out to us on social media. We're at O3C Games on everything. Go to our website, o3c.games, join the link, click the link to join our Discord, and chat with us more. We love it.
Chop BINZ!
Chop BINZ!
Chop BINZ!